The subject line landed in Maya's inbox at 9:07 a.m. and sounded like a hand on the brake. Stay in control of Q4. The CFO's note was short. Preserve cash, tighten working capital, restage experiments until January, but it changed the temperature of the room. By lunch, the media lead reported that search CPCs were oddly flat, yet brand RFPs that usually drew instant replies were merely seen. A creator marketplace offered cheerful discounts without being asked. 2 retail partners requested net 90 terms just for this quarter. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could print on a crisis memo, but Maya had lived through enough cycles to know marketing downturns don't announce themselves. They whisper them. The whispers sound like later, smaller, safer, and prove it. She walked the floor with a cup that had cooled during back-to-backs. Campaign boards still hummed, an autumn brand film in color grades, a holiday landing page half-wired, a grid of creators scheduled to post 3 times each. Everyone looked busy. Busy can be a disguise. She opened the forecasting model and watched it recalculate as she toggled dates, shortened the upper funnel flight from 6 weeks to 3, pull December's test spend into January, drop the second round of lift studies. The dashboard still looked green. Dashboards are polite. They tell you the truth you ask for. The first whisper, later, forced her to think in terms of oxygen rather than fireworks. She called the media buyer and asked for a cancellation windows baked into the plan, not as footnotes, but as architecture. If the CFO wanted optionality, she would give him optionality without starving reach. The buyer suggested splitting what had been a single high-gloss burst into 2 shorter bursts, feeding a thin, always-on stream. The idea felt like a tightrope with a net. She approved it and asked for a line item called Make Good Insurance, a package of credits and bonus impressions they could trigger if the market softened further. Fear hates preparedness. It moves on to easier prey. The second whisper, smaller, showed up in the influencer calendar. Briefs that once asked for 3 posts now requested 1, with the other 2 to be confirmed after performance reads. Shrinkflation had come for deliverables. Maya refused to fight it with sentiment. She rewrote the briefs into modules, an explainer to frame tension, a blunt demo to prove value in under 20 seconds, and an objection crusher that named the price, the minutes saved, or the feature competitors didn't have. If budgets shrank, clarity had to grow. She asked the creative director to apply a new rule across thumbnails and hooks, 3 words and 1 number. Nothing else. It felt austere, like cleaning a room and finding the floor again. The third whisper, safer, arrived through programmatic reports. Average CPMs were softening, which looked like a sale sign in the window, but the CPMs for the placements Maya actually needed, high-intent audiences, clean contexts, brand-safe channels, were inching higher. Everyone was crowding the same pond. Auctions become paradoxes during nerves. The market deflates while the premium pockets inflate. She told the team to keep the intent but change the road. They built contextual twins of their best converters, finance explainers instead of just finance news, science channels instead of the loudest tech outlets, product reviewers who tested claims instead of shouting them. They added time-of-day lanes when bids thinned, 6 a.m. commutes, late-night research, places where the target still shopped for certainty. The last whisper, prove it, was the loudest. The CFO had never been cruel about brand, only unconvinced by mythology. Maya invited finance into the design rather than the debrief and asked them to pick 2 tests they could live with. They chose a clean geo-split around a retail cluster and a pre-post brand lift study in 2 priority cities. She then promised something most marketers fear. If a channel couldn't run one crisp test inside 30 days, it couldn't keep its line on the plan. Measurement became a gateway, not an epitaph. At night, she reread the brief for the autumn film they'd almost canceled. It was beautiful and vague. She marked it up with a practical tenderness. Fewer metaphors, more proof. One human problem, one product mechanism, a quiet price anchor at the end. She thought about the industry's love affair with storytelling and how in anxious quarters, the most persuasive story is the receipt. The next morning, she asked the agency for cut-downs that could live where CPMs were cheap, but intent was high. The editor sent back a 60-second version that felt like a confession and a 30-second version that felt like a dare. She shipped both. Weeks became chapters. The always-on line never went dark. It was a heartbeat rather than a drumline. The two bursts did their work without demanding parades. Creators delivered in the new pattern: tension, proof, rebuttal. And the comments stopped arguing with Price because Price was now a character, not a secret. The contextual twins found audiences who behaved like their best buyers, but cost less to reach. The time-of-day lanes discovered shoppers who saved difficult decisions for the edges of the day. The geo-split showed a measurable lift around stores that received the full plan. Not a thunderclap, but a nudge you could defend. The brand lift study surprised everyone by moving consideration among people who had sworn they were just browsing. Finance began to ask more interesting questions, which is the corporate equivalent of applause. There were misses. One partner refused flexible terms and lost its slot. A live shopping pilot that once felt thrilling failed to clear its own hurdle and went back on the shelf. A creator with beautiful footage couldn't hit a deadline and was replaced by a quieter operator who did. Maya didn't mourn. Panic makes us sentimental about tactics. Discipline makes us loyal to outcomes. By December, the whispers hadn't vanished, but they were organized. The plan looked less like an apology for ambition and more like a blueprint for endurance. Revenue didn't spike, it stacked. The CFO, who never says thank you, sent a line that read, "This machine returns cash inside the window. Keep running it." The team printed the sentence and taped it above the editor's monitor. In the metals world, headlines love shortages: silver, gold, platinum. In marketing, the real shortage in shakier months isn't attention or inventory, it's clarity. The brands that survive aren't the loudest. They're the ones that keep one story, one metric, and one next step repeated until even a distracted shopper can finish the sentence for you. Maya understood that markets don't reward fearlessness so much as preparedness. She hadn't ignored the whispers. She had learned their grammar and spoke back with plans, not prayers. If a recession was coming for ad spend, it would have to pass through a system designed to separate signal from noise, proof from posture, and reach from vanity. And that system, humble and well-tuned, sounded like resilience.